Hello, and welcome to the Bend Like Bamboo podcast, where I get to interview special guests about their story and what resilience means to them. And today I am with Jeff Teal, founder and director of Hex Talent and Hexcom, career wellbeing advocate. Hi, Jeff. How are you today?
I'm well. Thank you, Amanda. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being with me today. I think that you are so interesting, and I want to just explain a little bit about you and these wonderful companies that you've created. So Jeff specializes in connecting and engaging talented career-minded professionals across Australia. He's the founder of Hex Talent, a company specializing in talent exchange, career engagement, but not your average recruitment company. Jeff's vision is to nourish his talent while offering better opportunities for corporates, which is how his second company, Hexcom, was birthed, a company and wellbeing hub that connects talent at all stages of their career, supporting and nourishing them with access to a holistic wellness platform that gives them access to content and specialists to optimize and elevate their mindset and performance. Did I get that right?
Love it. I feel like you've nailed it. I feel like you should be coming on board with me to help me sell the organization.
I think I should too. But what I loved about your personal bio is you say that it's taken you 37 years to reach a point where you feel well aligned to deliver your life's purpose. You followed a non-linear career path to get there, which I think is super cool, and we want to talk about that. You started out chasing a professional sporting career, which then zigzagged through multiple roles and industry sectors. You're always open to change, and you traveled the world as a professional singer for 10 years, something you and I have in common. So I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. Thanks, Jeff.
No, thank you. It's been a journey, that's for sure. And it's I look back on my life, I guess, to this point with really fond memories and being incredibly grateful for all the great experiences I've had.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I said in my bio on LinkedIn, it has taken me to right now to really feel like I'm doing kind of what I was meant to do.
It takes time. One thing leads to the next thing, to the next thing. And if we can be flexible in our mindset and really see it that way, it's about the journey, but we're always about the destination somehow, aren't we?
You're 100% right. Exactly right. And I think it's, at the time we go through the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of life and career. And I guess right now with what I do, it enables me to, lean into some of the experiences that I've had when I'm talking to other individuals and help them, I guess, on their career transition journey or just broader career development.
Yeah, I think that's so wonderful. You've obviously got an enormous wire and passion behind what you do, which we will dive into. Tell us, actually, before we go into resilience, tell me about what inspired you to create Hex Talent and how that's led into Hexcom.
Yeah, so Hex Talent. So I kicked off Hex Talent at the start of this year. It's a modern, innovative, and quite a disruptive approach to traditional agency recruitment. I moved into the agency recruitment space probably 4.5 years ago, and there's a specific reason which I moved into that, which we'll get into, no doubt. But it never really sat well with me, I guess, the way in which talent and candidates, people, human beings were delivered. Were represented and engaged with, and in that traditional model, it's very client driven. Consultants, all they really care about is making money through placing of people and earning a commission check. So although it's a big industry, I feel like it was ripe for disruption. And so at the start of this year, Hex Talent was born. And I wanted to really reshape, I guess, that entire engagement process with clients, but also with talent, create a model, I guess, that's a non-commission driven model, which really, naturally clients are still going to be engaging with us, financially. And that's where, I guess, we draw revenue in the early stages of what we're building. But on the talent side, I wanted to build a business where I could really focus in on people and really assisting them on that career journey, be it through coaching and mentoring, professional development, unlocking opportunities with exposure to organizations, and all of those things wrap it up in a nice little bow and a nice little ecosystem, I guess, that enables that positive exchange of people and, enabling them to thrive in their careers.
Yeah, because there's so many stages of our career. There's so many things that we go through on our life journey at work. And as we spoke about yesterday, we're at work most of the time, if not 80% or more. Really.
100% right. Yeah. I mean, you look at our lifetime and how, and I mean, these days too, we're working probably harder and longer than we ever have.
Yeah.
And, with what's going on in the world now globally from a financial point of view, we might need to continue to work based on the money that we've lost over the more recent times. But it's a long journey. And I think, I had a conversation with someone recently about, is it a job? Is it a career? Is it a calling? And, if you look at what we do day in, day out, I think we need to try and find joy and happiness and balance. And I guess we're there to try and provide that for people in many, many ways.
I love that. Is it a job, career, or calling?
I didn't coin that. That was someone else, but I really like it.
I really like it too, but that represents what you are trying to do with Hex Talent and Hexcom. Tell me about Hexcom.
Yeah, so Hexcom was the idea behind Hexcom, I guess, is engagement and constant engagement with talent is something that a lot of recruitment agencies in the traditional format probably fall away from, and they probably don't do it well. And I myself, I guess, through my time, it is very difficult to engage with people constantly and check in with them and see how they're traveling. So I wanted to build, I guess, a community that brought everybody together in under a banner, which I've called Hexcom, the Career Wellbeing Community.
Yeah.
And really house that talent and those human beings, I guess, in a closed environment, away from the noise of Facebook and LinkedIn and all that sort of stuff. So house them in a nice little environment, which is a safe place to be, and it has that tone of career wellbeing across the top of it. So I created an app called Hexcom, and within the app, I guess it very much is like our own Facebook and LinkedIn without the noise and the algorithms and the advertising and all that sort of jazz.
Sure.
But we curate and we're building out a really great list of partners where we curate some really great content around mental and emotional health, physical health. It could be, coaching and mentoring services. It could be, how do you improve your ability to network with people across your career? All these things that we can sort of categorize in different buckets. So we link out to a lot of different businesses. We work with them to generate our own content and also leverage their content. And we also use this platform, I guess, as a space to really just drive positive conversation and connection. And over time, we're going to be doing regular events, face-to-face, online. We'll have masterclasses. We'll have all sorts of different things that we're going to build into the app.
I love it. I think it's a wonderful, because if you're all about nourishing the talent, and I guess that's where Hexcom comes in, as an app and a hub that can cater to all the various different needs of emotional, physical health, leadership, change that goes on, culture, everything.
We're actually having a chat with some really good people at the moment too when it comes to developing great e-learning content, which is sits more in the professional development space as well. So there's like an educational component to it, and I think housing it all in one little space is really beneficial. But when you think about well-being, take career out of it, but our individual well-being and our health, like it's such a big sector. And I think all we're trying to do, I guess, is really wrap it up and align it to what that means for your career, and how do you get the most out of that, and how do you, careers can be stressful. We all have challenges across the journey, both personal and through career. And it's like, how do you work through that with the support of others and enjoy it, and make the most of it? Yeah.
Well, on my own personal journey, all the lessons I learned, repairing my mental and physical health when I was paralyzed, later translated into how I would perform when I was on top of my game in a fast-paced environment at work, leading. And I really connected the well-being aspect to performing at work. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think leadership these days too, it has changed and it's evolving. There's a lot of immature businesses that probably still have a long way to go when it comes to their leadership mentality, but it needs to be a whole lot more empathetic. It needs to be this elevator system where leadership are bringing people up and enabling others to thrive. And in many ways, organizations need to be hiring people, and hiring managers need to be looking at hiring people that can be better than them, and it's this constant evolution of development. I think it's.
That's right. What a great mentality. And that's why we want to nourish the talent.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So tell me, what does resilience mean to you, Jeff?
Well, this is an interesting question. I'm a pretty positive person at the best of times. I mean, a lot of people, I'm very passionate. You mentioned that at the start. People probably go, "Oh, Jeff, you've got so much energy. You're so passionate," and it is true. But there are times in my life, and we can go into some of these in a bit more detail, where I, like many people, go up and down. And I think resilience. I mean, we're all faced with challenges, so many challenges, and how do we work through those challenges? So for me, resilience is, how do you get out of bed every single day with that positive mindset, and how can you get into that positive mindset quickly if you get out with a negative mindset, or you've had a rough night's sleep, or whatever it may be? How do you do that on a daily basis, and how do you look at each day as an opportunity? I've got a toddler at home who's causing me some grief. I've got a second baby on the way, and it's really hard sometimes. And then you throw in the work stresses and what I'm trying to build and all the different elements that are constantly swirling around in my head. And I try my hardest to get out of bed with positivity every day, but often it's really challenging. So you've got ways in which you can, try and get to that state.
Well, I totally agree. I think it would be wonderful to be able to have that mindset that enables us to see every day as an opportunity. And that equals being less stressed and knowing how to let go of the accumulation of stress that happens every single day, and some days more than others. And so when we are stressed, we're more selfish, we're more rigid, closed-minded, and we can't do that. But when we are less stressed and we know how to manage stress, we see things as happening for us rather than to us, right?
Completely. I think it's how you manage it and how you become aware of it too. I'm someone that people ask me, "Are you stressed?" I'm like, "No, I'm not stressed." But the reality is, I am probably stressed. My body probably shows significant signs of stress at times, and but I guess it's about being aware of it and then having the strategies to be able to work through it.
So how do you know when it's bubbling up for you and you need to do something? What is that for you?
It's interesting. I go a million miles an hour, and it's very hard for me to slow down. But there are periods in time where I can just sense it. I just need to stop, and I need to have a breath. And I'm probably lucky that I've got some people around me that help me with saying, "Jeff, just stop, just slow down, take some breaths." I'm not one to get into, and I need to do this more and more. But in terms of structured, mindfulness and things like that, where I can just step back, breathe.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. So there was a really pivotal moment in my life, which I think that's one thing that we're going to probably touch on now, where I had to make some drastic changes, and this could be the lead into that. But
great.
This was prior to recruitment. I was working for a company, it's going back 5 years ago, based out of Queensland. I was out on the road a lot. I had great clients. I was doing some great things from a business development point of view and a results perspective. But I went overseas, and I came back from overseas, and I had a bit of an issue with, my gut. I was feeling some funny sensations, I guess, in my gut, and I went to the doctors, and there was nothing really there that they could suggest was wrong. But in my mind, there was something wrong, and that little issue sort of was exacerbated over the course of probably 10 months. And I went from a pain in the gut to a pain in the shoulder to I was feeling nauseous all the time to I had all these physical ailments that were coming out in my body. And the reality is, I thought I was on death's door. I thought I was dying, and I thought there was something that just hadn't been found. I spent a ridiculous amount of money that year going from specialist to specialist, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. One of Melbourne's top infectious diseases specialists. And it wasn't until probably later on that journey, and there was a specific moment. There was a couple of specific moments, actually. There was one, I was going to the hospital. I was in all sorts. I thought I was goner. I called an Uber to get me to the hospital ASAP, and I went to get from the front door of my home to the Uber, and I literally, my legs just left me. I couldn't walk. I was, completely paralyzed, I guess, from the waist down, and I was sort of crawling on the ground to try and get into this Uber, and it was the most weird sensation. And ended up getting to the hospital, and the doctor there started talking more about perhaps we need to look at things from a mental perspective. And it wasn't until I probably acknowledged that, and perhaps I should have acknowledged that earlier, or someone maybe should have helped me with that. But I think I had to look down a different path to try and, assess what was going on.
I really think, in my work as a kinesiologist, I see this all the time, is when we're ignoring something, and it's for a reason. We don't want to look at it. We're used to bearing it. It can be too emotionally painful to go there. We've trained ourselves to suppress it. And then we learn to live this way. When we're not listening to something that our soul or spirit or, higher self is trying to say, or maybe when we've fallen off path. But whenever we're not listening, I find that physical symptoms tend to come up that often are unexplainable in tests. And so emotionally, you obviously weren't feeling well, and that might have reflected in your body. And then what did you do from there to address the emotional well-being?
Yeah, well, that specific moment, I mean, you categorize that into an incredible anxiety attack, I guess, where I couldn't walk, and so many people go through things.
You shut down,
yeah. So I went through the process, I guess, of finally speaking to someone from a clinical psychology perspective and just unpacking things that had gone on in my life, and the journey that I'd gone on. And there was actually another moment. I remember driving to my first psychology appointment, and I just had one of these anxiety attacks in the car, and I had to pull over, and I had a piece of paper and a pen. And the only thing that got me out of this little state was to scribble pictures and stuff on a piece of paper. And that sort of enabled me to sort of settle a little bit and come out of the state that I was in. Down the track, I learned that that's actually a technique that you can use to pull yourself out of your mind.
Yeah. Maybe it was the present moment of drawing, do you think? The present, or it just gets you out of your head somehow?
Yeah, I was just searching for something to make me feel better. I was just in all sorts, but so constant conversation then with, getting into some routine consultation with a psychologist really assisted me, I guess, in, going back and unpacking my life a little bit, because I did have this weird life where growing up, all I wanted to do was become an AFL player. I played footy from age 5. I got very, very close to that. And then that sort of all fell apart after I broke up with my first serious long-term girlfriend, and I ended up leaning into music, and then that led into this 10-year career traveling around the world as a singer, which was an unexpected career path, and a career path that, I never anticipated that career would unfold for me. And perhaps for that 10 years, I always felt a little bit inadequate comparative to the other people that were on stage with me and that had gone through all this professional musical theatre training and, operatic training and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
All of these things sort of bubbled away over these years. And I think one of the biggest thing in combination with all of that is I was lonely. I was working for a business based in Queensland. I had great people around me from a work perspective, really good friends, but I was spending so much time alone on the road, in my head, in planes, and I just needed to break it. I needed to get out of that sense of loneliness in my head.
Yeah, and that's where you feel so disconnected and misaligned, and that can create anxiety and stress. And sometimes it's hard to figure out that it's loneliness,
Yeah.
It can be difficult to understand what it is that's creating that survival stress response. And it's different for everybody. We all have our own way of, perceiving threat. And it is a lonely journey being a singer and traveling. And but there's amazing aspects to it too. Did you enjoy?
Oh, of course. There was so many much fun. There were so many great things we did globally. And
what was the name of the band?
So I was in a group called the 10 Tenors. They're like an Australian sort of classical crossover group, and I was in that group for the best part of sort of 4 years, and doing some amazing things. 10 months each year was spent traveling globally, country to country, doing a huge amount of gigs in every part of America or Europe. And
wow.
I went to so many parts of the globe that I never ever thought I would ever go to.
Wow.
But you're so right. I mean, I've always had a really close core group of friends that I played footy with growing up, and that I remain really, really close with to this day. But when you're spending a lot of time in hotels overseas, you kind of do lose connections with the periphery, the other people that you would sort of maintain connections with a whole lot. And someone that loves to build relationships and meet people, and that was sort of lacking, I guess.
Yeah, and it very similar to what we've just gone through with COVID in the last year or couple of years, where we've lost connections within our usual circles, and it has caused, I see this in my private practice every single day, anxiety and depression and people are starting to understand that that is about the loneliness.
Yeah.
And I think, more than ever, we've had to learn in the last few years, and perhaps you on your journey when you were traveling and singing, is how to find that deeper connection within ourselves, like that inner anchor, like that bamboo tree that's anchored, for us to create that flexible mindset, to change our minds about the story of, okay, I might be feeling lonely right now, but I am loved, I am connected, and I'm just on this experience. COVID's happening right now, but it's just a phase. Or when I'm traveling, it's so hard to change the story. But I believe that if we create a flexible mindset, it's easier to change the story. And that story we tell ourselves is connected to the biochemistry that will fire in the body, which is either the fight or flight or the growth and repair pathway.
The hardest part is a lot of us don't know, how to access that too, right? Unless there's awareness, unless you're around people that can help educate you around that, and how do you identify what you're feeling, and it's really challenging, which is why you're doing such a great job doing all the things that you do in your work, and it's half the reason why I do what I do now. Well, it is the reason why I do what I do now, because I needed to change that environment that I was in. And that's how I found recruitment, because I essentially took myself out of my own mind, and I spent my time thinking about others and meeting others and connecting with others and helping others on their journey. And
you thrive when you do that. You're a people person. You love connecting. So you will gain energy when you're doing that. You won't be depleted like an introvert would.
Yeah, it fills my buckets. It fills my buckets every single day. And it's when I moved into that space initially, there is that financial outcome that comes from placing people in roles. But again, because I've always focused more on the talent side. Like I just love that being there to perhaps coach and mentor and just guide and advise, and being there to just listen. People that are going through a job transition, it's highly stressful. If there's someone on the end of the phone that they can feel is genuinely listening and wanting to help them, that's really what drives me every day now, I guess.
That's what I love about Hexcom, is you're providing an easier way for people to find and have access to, and therefore create that awareness within themselves of how to solve their problems of not feeling well emotionally or physically. And half the problem is, well, where do I find that help? Who's the right specialist? Who's the right person? Trusted sources,
Yeah, and that's what we're going to do with Hexcom as well. So, we want to become a directory, I guess, to share businesses and people and individuals that are out there doing great things. But we also want to build some really good relationships with some really trusted partners that can form part of our ecosystem. And, we all go on this journey together of influencing the world. Let's take it to the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So what I'm hearing is that your lowest point would have been where you were experiencing panic attacks and you felt lonely.
Yeah.
And then there would have been a turning point what was that turning point that brought you out of that, where you found positivity and a new pathway forward?
Yeah, so that was, I guess, speaking with my psychologist at the time, and, I just had to change something, as I mentioned before, and it's just, I've never been one who's afraid of change. Like my life has gone on this nonlinear path because I've always been open to opportunities in many facets of life. And I've copped a lot of grief for that growing up as well, because people are like, oh, why don't you just stick with one job for the rest of your life and, do what all these people did 30 years ago. And that's just never been me.
No way. That would be, how are you going to grow and learn if you just do one thing? Well, some people love that.
Tell my parents that. It's quite funny. So I just had to make that change. And I think that change probably came from discussions with my psychologist, going down a path that I knew I had to do. There was some cognitive behavioral therapy techniques and stuff that I was using to get me out of those, highly anxious states where I worried about my health. It's funny how, simple statements and saying statements to yourself can really shift. You catch your mind before it goes down this sort of this rabbit hole, and you can bring yourself back into the present sort of state. And so I changed into the recruitment space, and that's really what shifted it for me. And it's not to say that I still don't struggle with things at times. That those specific lines that I use, I often use still on a weekly, monthly basis. But I feel like I'm probably a little bit more stable, I guess, with those the depths, I guess, of those anxiety and health issues. Probably just I found a way to control it, really.
I think that's wonderful and really admirable and good on you, because yeah, it's inspiring to hear your story and how you've turned it all around, and for you to be open and honest about how hard it was when you felt lost and unwell emotionally, and then how that came through physically in your body. I think a lot of people are going to relate hearing this, because where a lot of people are, go through this, but people find it really difficult to talk about it. But we shouldn't. Just be open about it. Just be open about how you're thinking and feeling, because how you think and feel and what you believe is connected to your biochemistry. And, if you're okay with it, other people will be okay with it. If you experience guilt and shame about the way you feel, it's very repelling, and you're going to create a self-fulfilling prophecy of people being alienated by it if you are alienated by it. So if you're okay with it, increasing self-love and support, and you've now are helping other people, Jeff, to connect with.
Give me goosebumps.
It's
strange that the thing that I look back on now too, and I go, the fact that I went through that, and my story is one story, right? Everybody's got a story, and everybody goes through challenges. You've had challenges yourself. Everyone's got challenges, and they're all different. And people go, well, was my story harder than yours? But there should be no rating system across it all, because someone that's having a small issue could be significant to them personally. But what it's giving me a really great appreciation for is, others that are going through challenges. And what I went through was pretty serious for me, but I look at other things and I go, gosh, that must have been hard. And gosh, the amount of people that have got clinically diagnosed depression, and they're in really terrible situations, that they're overcoming legitimate health concerns, and it's giving me a very different appreciation for what people go through, which obviously gives me more empathy towards having been through something myself. And it's almost like I feel like until you sort of go through something, it's like that catalyst moment for you to go, wow.
Yeah, because now you can meet people where they're at, and when they are suffering, you really understand what it feels like. You wouldn't be able to do what you're doing now if you hadn't have gone through that.
Yeah, there's a completely different relatability sort of element to it, and that's why I now look at Hex Talent and the humanistic exchange being the tagline, and the career wellbeing community. Challenges, be it big or small, they're still challenges, and the whole idea is to help people through their challenges. And for us, it's career challenges. Job transition, dealing with a really difficult stakeholder at work. You're getting bullied at work. So where can you go to seek help, and who can you talk to? How can you shift your CV to provide, so it's more relatable to businesses, and it gives you more opportunity. Just simple things that, they become overwhelming when you combine them all together.
Definitely. We need so much help with that, and you're going to help people to thrive in their careers, and that's just going to help people on a global scale. So tell me, what are 3 tips that you can share of how what helped you to get through your adversities to get you to where you are today? So if anyone listening today relates to your story or what you've been through, what are 3 tips that you can share?
3 tips. I think the biggest one, and it's often spoken about, but we probably don't listen to ourselves a lot or enough, is just to try and be open and speak to people, be it your best friend, your partner, your family, someone who's actually a medical professional. I think just trying to open up and speak to people about the challenges you're going through is one of those things, and that's easier or harder to do. But I think you just got to be conscious of trying to do that, and people around us will help us do that. I think education's significant. When you think of mental health and anxiety and stress and all that sort of stuff, it's being, like you said before, how do you learn to become aware of the things that you're going through? And then further to that, I guess it's about then, finding those solutions or those techniques to get you through those periods once you're aware of what you're going through.
Absolutely.
And the third one, this is something that I think we need to do more of, and it's really, really hard, but a simple thing like smiling. When you smile, like there's been so many studies in the past that show that when you smile, it helps you and your outlook on life, and physiologically things change when you smile and the connection with the brain. It's a pretty basic thing, right?
Absolutely. What a great tip. Just remember to smile.
Remember to smile, I think it's, and be grateful for what you have, I guess, is the other big thing too.
Yeah, gratitude's important. I'm really loving this app, Insight Timer, at the moment, which has a lot of gratitude meditations in the morning. I'm really loving that app at the moment. Studies show, Harvard studies show, this is one I did this morning, that if you practice gratitude for 10 consecutive days, you're not only inclined to feel more positive, but you're more inclined to exercise more and eat better as well.
Yeah, there you go. Habits, right?
Yeah.
How do you create a good habit? You've got to start somewhere, right? You do it for 10 days.
Absolutely. Well, I've really enjoyed this conversation with you today, Jeff, and I really wish you the best of luck with your businesses. I think that you're very inspiring.
Oh, thank you. It's as long as we can help a lot of people, right? That's the vision, that's the mission. So we'll keep working hard to do that. That's
right. Helping people with their career and also to thrive in their lives. Love it. So please share and subscribe and review the podcast. Thank you for being with Jeff and I today. And remember that flexibility builds resilience. And with a flexible mindset, we can change our minds about what can be possible in our minds, bodies, and lives. Thank you so much, Jeff.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Bend Like Bamboo podcast. Please rate and share the episode with your community or anyone you think may need to hear this episode. If you would like any help with maximizing well-being and flexibility in your life personally, you can see me one-on-one at the private practice in Melbourne or on Zoom if you are not local. You can book in or find more info at bendlikebamboo.com. If you would like help remotely, I have a resilience program you can do as an online course with 6 ebooks and videos on mind, body, food, connection that include resilience and tools that can help you to feel happier and healthier after rebuilding from change, stress, or illness. If you would like help with boosting resilience and wellness in the workplace, you can book in for a free Zoom discovery chat. The Bend Like Bamboo at Work program can be delivered in person or virtually. And if you would like to inquire about Bend Like Bamboo at School, you can find information on all these programs on my website, amandacampbell.com.au. And you can contact me on email, amanda@bendlikebamboo.com. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast. And remember that flexibility builds resilience. And no matter what you are going through, you can overcome it and discover what you are made of. See you at the next session.